The white orchids arrived at precisely 7:43 p.m. Elena watched from her car across the street, knuckles white against the steering wheel. Through La Maison's front window, she could see them, two silhouettes leaning toward each other in the amber glow of the upscale restaurant. Her husband, Nathan, and a woman Elena had never met. The waiter approached their table with the arrangement. Elegant, expensive. The kind Nathan had sent Elena on their anniversary 2 months earlier. She watched as confusion crossed Nathan's face, followed by something else. Fear. The woman, younger, with dark hair tumbling past her shoulders, reached for the card nestled among the blooms. Elena knew what it said. 6 words in her own handwriting. With love, from your wife. As the woman's expression transformed, Elena started the engine. She didn't need to see more, not yet. The real confrontation would come later. Tonight was just the beginning. 6 months earlier. You're working late again? Elena cradled her phone against her shoulder as she stirred pasta sauce on the stove. The kitchen smelled of basil and garlic. A dinner for 2 that would now be a dinner for 1. I'm sorry, Elle. Nathan's voice had that familiar tone, regretful but distracted. The Sullivan proposal deadline got moved up. The whole team's scrambling. Elena sighed, lowering the heat on the burner. That's the 3rd time this week, Nate. I know. I promise I'll make it up to you this weekend. We'll do something special. Like last weekend. The words slipped out before she could stop them. A pause. That's not fair. I had that conference. I know. Elena ran a hand through her hair. I'm just tired, I guess. Me too. Look, I should be done by 9. I'll bring home that tiramisu you like from Johnny's. She softened, despite herself. Okay. Love you. Love you too. After hanging up, Elena stood in the kitchen of their downtown condo, surrounded by the trappings of their successful life together. 12 years of marriage captured in photographs on the walls, hiking the Inca Trail, dancing at her sister's wedding, wrapped in scarves during their trip to Iceland. A life that had once felt so solid. When had things started to shift? Not dramatically, but incrementally, like sand eroding beneath her feet, 1 grain at a time. Perhaps it was when Nathan made partner at his architectural firm 2 years ago. The late nights had started then, but she'd been proud of him, supportive. They were building toward something, weren't they? The family they'd been discussing, the house in the suburbs they'd toured last spring. But somewhere along the way, those conversations had tapered off. Elena poured herself a glass of wine and carried her plate to their dining table, sleek, modern, and far too large for one person. As she ate, she scrolled through emails on her tablet, reviewing donor meetings for the Arts Foundation where she worked as development director. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Mia. Still on for lunch tomorrow? Elena typed back, absolutely. Need to vent? Trouble in paradise? Mia replied. Elena stared at the screen. Just ships passing in the night lately. Been there. Nothing tiramisu can't fix. But when Nathan finally came home at 10:30, no tiramisu, eyes tired, smelling faintly of scotch, Elena pretended to be asleep. The first concrete suspicion came 3 weeks later. Elena was using Nathan's laptop to print some documents while hers updated. A notification flashed in the corner of the screen, a text message from someone named Vanessa. Last night was incredible. Miss you already. Elena froze, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Her heart stuttered, then raced. The message disappeared before she could see more. It could be innocent, she told herself. A colleague, a client. But the phrasing... She opened his messages app, but found nothing. The texts weren't syncing to his computer anymore. When had that changed? That night, she casually mentioned the name over dinner. Is Vanessa the new designer at your firm? The one who worked on the hospital project? Nathan's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Just for a millisecond, but Elena caught it. No, that's Veronica. Vanessa's the client liaison for the Sullivan account. He took a bite of his salmon. Why do you ask? Oh, just curious. Her name came up when I was talking to Jim at the charity gala. A lie, She hadn't spoken to Nathan's coworker at the event. Right. Nathan nodded, then redirected. Speaking of the gala, how much did you end up raising? Elena answered automatically, letting him change the subject, but the seed of doubt had been planted. That night, she lay awake beside him, listening to his breathing. Had it always been this easy for him to lie? Or was she the one making connections that weren't there? Over the following weeks, Elena became a detective in her own marriage. She hated herself for it, the checking of receipts, the casual questions about his schedule, the way her stomach clenched when his phone buzzed. The evidence accumulated slowly. A credit card charge at a hotel downtown on a night he'd supposedly been at a client dinner. The faint scent of an unfamiliar perfume on his jacket. The growing emotional distance between them, punctuated by occasional bursts of attentiveness that felt like guilt. You seem distracted lately, Nathan said one Saturday morning as they sat at their kitchen island with coffee and the newspaper, a weekend ritual that had survived. Despite everything else, Elena looked up from an article she hadn't really been reading. Do I? He reached across the marble countertop and took her hand. Is everything okay at work? You've seemed, I don't know, somewhere else. The irony made her want to laugh. Or cry. Work is fine, she said. Just busy. Maybe we need a vacation. Get away somewhere, just the two of us. His thumb traced circles on her wrist. Reconnect. She studied his face, the face she'd woken up to for 12 years. Handsome still, with flecks of gray at his temples that hadn't been there when they'd met. Eyes that had once looked at her with such certainty. That would be nice, she said, withdrawing her hand to reach for her coffee. But as she watched him return to his newspaper, Elena felt a coldness settle in her chest. She didn't want a vacation. She wanted the truth. You need to confront him, Mia said over lunch the following week. They sat at an outdoor cafe, sunglasses on despite the overcast day. Just ask him outright. Elena picked at her salad. And if he denies it, then you show him what you've found. Which is what? Circumstantial evidence? Hunches? Elena shook her head. He'll just say I'm paranoid. Are you? Paranoid? Mia leaned forward. Elena, I've known you my whole life. You're not the jealous type. If you think something's wrong, something's wrong. Elena pushed a tomato around her plate. I need to be sure. What would make you sure? I don't know. Catching them together, I guess. Mia's expression softened. And then what? What would you do? It was the question Elena had been avoiding. If her suspicions were confirmed, what came next? Counseling? Divorce? Forgiveness? I don't know that either, she admitted. But I need to know what I'm forgiving or walking away from before I can decide. After lunch, instead of returning to work, Elena drove to Nathan's office building downtown. She parked across the street, feeling ridiculous, like a character in a movie she would have scoffed at before. But here she was, watching the entrance, waiting. At 2:17, Nathan emerged, alone. He walked briskly down the street, checking his watch, not heading toward any of the nearby lunch spots, but turning onto a side street. Elena followed, maintaining distance, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. 3 blocks later, he entered the lobby of the Hotel Chandler. Elena stopped, watching through the glass as he crossed to the elevators without checking in. She sat in her car for an hour, then 2, tears sliding beneath her sunglasses. When Nathan finally emerged, he was alone again, but his hair was slightly damp as if he'd showered. He straightened his tie, checked his phone, and walked back in the direction of his office. That night, when Nathan called to say he'd be working late, Elena replied with a calm she didn't feel. No problem. I've got plans with Mia anyway. Oh? Anything fun? Just dinner. Maybe a movie. Sounds nice. Don't wait up. I won't. Instead of calling Mia, Elena opened her laptop and pulled up the location tracking app she'd installed on both their phones years ago, ostensibly for safety when traveling. She'd never used it to check on Nathan before. It had felt like an invasion of privacy. Now, it felt like self-preservation. At 7:30, the dot that represented Nathan's phone wasn't at his office. It was at La Maison, an upscale French restaurant downtown. The kind of place you took someone to impress them. The kind of place that required reservations weeks in advance. Elena changed into a black dress and heels, applied lipstick with a steady hand, grabbed her car keys, then she stopped, hand on the doorknob. What was her plan? To burst into the restaurant and make a scene? That wasn't her. Despite the pain tearing through her, she wanted to maintain her dignity. She needed a different approach. Something that would make it clear she knew, without reducing herself to a cliché. Slowly, she set down her keys and picked up her phone instead. The florist was closing when Elena arrived. "I'm sorry, we're just about to—" the young man began, but something in Elena's expression made him stop. "What can I help you with?" "I need an arrangement delivered tonight. To a restaurant. It's important." 20 minutes and $200 later. Elena left with the promise that the white orchids, identical to the ones Nathan had given her on their last anniversary, would be delivered to La Maison within the hour, along with the card she'd written. She drove to the restaurant but remained in her car across the street, watching, waiting. Through the window, she could see them. Nathan leaning forward intently, and across from him, a woman with long dark hair. Even from a distance, Elena could tell she was beautiful. Younger. Animated in a way Elena hadn't felt in months. Vanessa, she presumed. The sight should have devastated her. Instead, a strange calm descended. The confirmation brought clarity rather than chaos. She'd known, hadn't she? Deep down. This was just the period at the end of a sentence that had already been written. At 7:43, she watched the waiter approach their table with the orchids. Watched confusion flicker across Nathan's face, followed by panic as the woman, Vanessa, read the card. Elena couldn't hear the words, but she could imagine them. "With love, from your wife." Nathan stood abruptly, looking around the restaurant. Searching for her, perhaps. Vanessa remained seated, her body language shifting from shock to something harder. Anger? Elena started her car. She'd seen enough. As she drove home, her phone lit up with Nathan's calls. She let them go to voicemail. He would come home eventually, and they would have their confrontation. But it would be on her terms, in their space, not as a spectacle for strangers to witness. She arrived home and poured herself a glass of wine, kicked off her heels, sat in the darkness of their living room and waited. The door opened at 9:22. Nathan's keys hit the console table with a clatter. "Elena?" His voice was tight with controlled panic. "Are you here?" She turned on the lamp beside her. "I'm here." He stood in the entryway, tie loosened, face pale. "What the hell was that?" "That," Elena said calmly, "was me introducing myself to your girlfriend." "It's not—" He stopped, recalibrated. "You could have just asked me." Elena laughed, a hollow sound that surprised even her. "Asked you what, Nathan? If you're sleeping with someone else? Would you have told me the truth?" He moved into the room but didn't sit. "This isn't how adults handle problems. And lying to your wife for months is? It's complicated. It's really not." Elena took a sip of wine. "How long?" Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "Elena, how long?" He sank onto the couch across from her. 4 months. The timeline clicked into place. Around when the Sullivan Project started, when the late nights became routine rather than exception. "Is it serious?" she asked, surprising herself with the question. Nathan looked up, his expression conflicted. "I don't know. Do you love her?" "Elena, please! It's a simple question." He exhaled heavily. "I don't know that either." Silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of 12 years and one massive betrayal. "She didn't know about me, did she?" Elena finally asked. "At least not until tonight." Nathan's jaw tightened. "No. So you're lying to both of us." She nodded, more to herself than to him. "Impressive multitasking." "I never meant for any of this to happen." It was such a cliché that Elena almost laughed again. "But it did happen, and you let it keep happening." "I know." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I got lost somehow. In the work, in the pressure, Vanessa was just there. Easy. No history, no expectations. Unlike your wife, that's not fair. Fair? Elena set down her glass with more force than intended. You want to talk about fair? I've spent months questioning my sanity, Nathan. Wondering if I was imagining things. Making myself sick with doubt while you were… What? Playing house with her at the Hotel Chandler? His head snapped up. You followed me? I shouldn't have had to. Her voice cracked for the first time. You should have been honest with me. And said what? That I was unhappy? That I felt trapped in a life that looks perfect on paper but feels empty most days? The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Empty? We built this life together. And somewhere along the way, we stopped building anything new. Nathan stood, pacing the room. When was the last time we really talked, Elle? Not about work or social obligations or what to have for dinner, but really talked? So this is my fault? No, God, no. He stopped, facing her. It's mine. I handled everything wrong. Instead of talking to you, I ran away. But something was broken before Vanessa. Elena felt tears threatening but refused to let them fall. And now? Now? Nathan's shoulders slumped. Now everything's shattered. The frankness of his assessment hung in the air between them. Elena stood, needing to move, to put distance between herself and this conversation that was destroying everything she'd believed about her marriage. What happens with her? After tonight's little surprise? She asked. She's furious. Rightfully so. Nathan's laugh was bitter. Congratulations. You've successfully ruined both relationships in one move. Don't you dare make me the villain here, Elena snapped. I'm not the one who lied. No. You just decided public humiliation was the way to go. Would you have preferred I pretended not to know? Kept playing the fool while you juggled us both? Nathan was quiet for a moment. No, you deserved better than that. The acknowledgement diffused some of her anger, leaving raw pain in its wake. So what now? I don't know. He looked defeated, standing in the home they'd shared for a decade. I can stay at a hotel tonight. Is that what you want? What I want? He trailed off, then met her gaze directly. What I want is impossible. I want to go back and make different choices. I want to not hurt you. I want to be the man you thought you married. Elena felt the tears finally spill over. I thought I knew you. Maybe neither of us knows anything anymore. Nathan left that night with a hastily packed bag, and Elena locked the door behind him. She spent hours sitting on their balcony, watching the city lights and trying to make sense of her new reality. In the morning, bleary-eyed from lack of sleep, she called in sick to work for the first time in years. She couldn't face colleagues, small talk, the performative normality required to get through a day when everything had changed. Instead, she did something she'd been avoiding. She opened Nathan's laptop. He'd left it behind in his hurry to leave, and for once, Elena didn't hesitate to invade his privacy. That ship had sailed. His password was still the same, their wedding anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on her. She found the emails easily enough. Hundreds between Nathan and Vanessa, dating back months. Professional at first, then friendly, then intimate. She read enough to confirm what she already knew, then forced herself to stop. The details would only cut deeper, but she did look up Vanessa Marshall on social media. Executive at Sullivan Development, 34 to Elena's 41, unmarried. A life documented in carefully curated photos, exotic travels, charity galas, sunset yoga on the beach. The perfect, modern, successful woman. Had Nathan shown Vanessa pictures of his wife? Did she know Elena's name before the flowers arrived? Or had she been as deceived as Elena herself? On impulse, Elena sent a message request. We should talk. Without Nathan, she didn't expect a response, not really. But 20 minutes later, her phone chimed. The Atwood Hotel bar. 7 p.m. tonight. Elena stared at the message, her heart racing. Was she really considering this? Meeting her husband's mistress for drinks like some sort of bizarre social encounter? Yes, she was. Because if this marriage was ending, and it certainly felt that way, she needed to face this situation head on. She typed back, I'll be there. The Atwoods bar was dimly lit and sleek, with velvet chairs and marble tables. Elena arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a vodka martini, and chose a corner table that offered some privacy. Vanessa arrived exactly at 7, scanning the room before spotting Elena. Even prepared by photos, Elena was struck by her presence, confident, stylish, with an intensity in her dark eyes that pictures hadn't captured. Elena. Vanessa extended her hand formally as she sat. Thank you for suggesting this. Elena shook it, noting the firm grip. Thank you for agreeing. Your flower delivery was effective. Vanessa ordered a whiskey neat from the passing server. Creative, I'll give you that. It seemed appropriate. Did it give you satisfaction? The question was direct without malice. Elena considered it. Not really. Just confirmation. For what it's worth, I didn't know he was married. Vanessa's expression hardened. He told me he was divorced, recently, still figuring things out. And you believed him? Why wouldn't I? I'm not in the habit of dating married men. She paused as her drink arrived. He wore his ring sometimes. Said it was complicated with clients. Easier to maintain the appearance. Elena twisted her own wedding band, still on her finger. He's a better liar than I gave him credit for. He played us both. Vanessa took a sip of whiskey. Though you got the worse end of the deal, obviously. Did I? Elena asked. You thought you were building something real. Finding out it was all based on lies, that's its own kind of betrayal. Something shifted in Vanessa's expression, surprise perhaps at Elena's empathy. He's been calling me nonstop, texting, showing up at my office. What does he want? Forgiveness, I think. A second chance. Vanessa laughed shortly. He claims he was going to tell me about you, that he was figuring things out. And what do you say to that? That he had 4 months to figure things out. She met Elena's gaze directly. And that I'm not interested in being anyone's mistress or consolation prize. Elena nodded slowly. He came by the condo this morning while I was out. Left flowers. Ironic, right? Let me guess, white orchids? Red roses, actually. As if that's more sincere somehow. They shared a look of understanding that transcended their complicated connection. Can I ask you something personal? Vanessa said after a moment. I think we're beyond formalities at this point. Were you happy? Before you found out? The question caught Elena off guard. She stared into her martini, considering. I thought I was. Or I told myself I was. But looking back? No, not for a while. He told me things weren't good between you. That you'd grown apart. Vanessa's tone was careful, not accusatory. I'm not justifying what he did, what we did. Just trying to understand. He told me something similar last night. That we'd stopped building anything new. Elena sighed. Maybe he was right about that part. We fell into routines, took each other for granted. That happens in any long-term relationship. It does, but you're supposed to talk about it. Work through it, not... She gestured between them. This, Vanessa nodded. For what it's worth, I think he does love you. When he talked about your early years together, there was real emotion there. That doesn't help much right now. No, I suppose it doesn't. Vanessa finished her whiskey and signaled for another. What will you do now? It was the same question Mia had asked, but somehow coming from Vanessa, it demanded a real answer. I don't know yet, but I won't be making any decisions based on what Nathan wants. Elena straightened her shoulders. For the first time in years, maybe I need to figure out what I want. That's remarkably healthy. Don't be too impressed. I also considered slashing his tires. Vanessa laughed, a genuine sound that momentarily bridged the gulf between them. I may have fantasized about something similar. They fell into an unexpected ease. Two women united by betrayal and a mutual discovery of strength. He doesn't deserve either of us, Vanessa said finally. No, Elena agreed. He really doesn't. As they parted ways outside the hotel, Vanessa hesitated. This is probably inappropriate, but... Thank you. For the flowers. For forcing the truth into the open. Elena nodded. And thank you for meeting me. It helped. Contextualize things. Good luck, Elena. Whatever you decide. You too. Elena watched Vanessa walk away, a strange sense of closure settling over her. Not about Nathan. That wound was still raw, but about this woman who had unknowingly played a role in the unraveling of her marriage. There was no villain in their triangle, just three flawed people making poor choices for complicated reasons. As she hailed a taxi home, Elena's phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Can we talk? Please. I miss you." She didn't respond, but for the first time in months, she felt something close to clarity. The confrontation with Nathan came 3 days later. Elena had stayed with Mia, needing space to think. When she finally agreed to meet him at their condo, she arrived with a sense of purpose that had been missing for too long. Nathan was waiting, looking haggard. The apartment was spotless. He'd clearly cleaned in anticipation of her arrival. "You met with Vanessa," he said as she set down her bag. Elena raised an eyebrow. "She told you?" "No. The bartender at the Atwood is an old college friend. He mentioned it." "Of course he is." Elena shook her head. "Small world. Why did you meet her?" "I needed to hear her side. See who she was." Nathan ran a hand through his unwashed hair. And she seems like someone who deserves better than being lied to." "I've ended it with her," he said. "Completely. I told her I'm committed to fixing things with you." Elena moved to the windows, looking out at the city skyline. "That's a unilateral decision on your part." "What do you mean?" She turned to face him. "You're assuming I want things fixed." His expression faltered. "Don't you? 12 years, Elle. That's not something to throw away over one mistake." "One mistake?" "Nathan, you had a 4-month affair. You lied to me daily. You took another woman to our anniversary restaurant." Her voice remained steady despite the emotions churning beneath. "That's not one mistake. That's hundreds of choices. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll let me." He stepped toward her, but stopped when she tensed. "I love you, Elena. I never stopped loving you. But you stopped choosing me," she said simply. "Every day you chose her instead. It wasn't about choosing. It was about escaping." He sank onto the couch. "I felt trapped in expectations. Mine, yours, everyone's. Partner track, perfect husband, future father. I panicked. So you found solace in someone else's bed? It wasn't just sex." He winced at his own words. "That came out wrong." "No, I think it came out exactly right. It wasn't just physical, was it? You had an emotional affair too." Elena felt strangely calm speaking these truths aloud. "You gave her parts of yourself that should have been mine." "I want to give them back to you," he said desperately. "I want us to start over. That's the problem, Nathan. We can't start over. We can only go forward from here." She sat in the chair opposite him. "And I'm not sure I want to go forward with you." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need time. Away from you, away from us. To figure out what I want my life to be." "A separation?" His voice cracked. "For now." Elena met his gaze. "Maybe more later. I don't know yet." Nathan looked broken, but there was resignation in his eyes, as if he'd known somehow that this was coming. "I'll move out. Give you the space you need." "I appreciate that." "But Elena?" He leaned forward. "I'm not giving up on us. I'll wait. However long it takes," she didn't reply. Promises seemed hollow now, coming from him. Actions would matter more than words going forward. "I met with a therapist yesterday," he continued when she remained silent, "just for me to start. To figure out why I did what I did. Why I hurt you like this." It was the first thing he'd said that surprised her. "That's good. I think that will help. Will you consider counseling too? Together, I mean. Eventually?" Elena stood, needing movement again. "Maybe. I don't know yet." She went to the kitchen and poured herself water, buying time to collect her thoughts. When she returned, she found the courage to ask the question that had haunted her. "Why her, Nathan? What did she give you that I couldn't?" He looked pained. "It wasn't about what she gave me. It was about who I could be with her. Someone new, someone without history or mistakes or expectations." He swallowed hard. Someone who didn't know all my flaws yet. The honesty hurt, but Elena appreciated it more than platitudes would have. And now? Now I realize how shallow that is. How cowardly. He met her gaze directly. The person who knows all your flaws and loves you anyway, that's the person worth fighting for. Elena felt tears threaten but held them back. I used to think so too. 3 months later, the gallery was crowded for a Wednesday evening. Elena moved through the space, champagne flute in hand, making sure to speak with each of the artists featured in the Foundation's Emerging Talent Showcase. As development director, these events were partly her responsibility, but tonight felt different. Special. Incredible turnout, Mia said, appearing at her side. You should be proud, Elena smiled. It came together well. The artists are happy, donors are opening their checkbooks, and the catering didn't screw up the canapes. I'm counting it as a win. And you look fantastic. That dress is perfect. Elena smoothed the blue silk of her new dress, bought specifically for this event. Thanks. It felt good to buy something just for me. Mia squeezed her arm. He's here, by the way. Just arrived. Elena's heart stuttered. Nathan? No, silly. Daniel, the curator I told you about. Mia nodded toward the entrance. The one who's been asking about you for weeks. Elena followed her gaze to a tall man in wire-rimmed glasses, examining a large abstract canvas with genuine interest. Mia, I'm not ready. It's just conversation, not a marriage proposal. Mia grinned. And speaking of marriage, she pulled an envelope from her clutch and handed it to Elena. What's this? Nathan dropped it off at my place this morning. Asked me to give it to you tonight. Elena stared at the envelope, her name written in Nathan's familiar handwriting. Did he say anything else? Just that it was important. Mia glanced around the gallery. I should check on the sound system before the speeches. You okay? Elena nodded. Go. I'm fine. Alone, she turned the envelope over in her hands. 3 months of separation had brought both clarity and confusion. She'd moved into her own apartment, started therapy, reconnected with friends she'd neglected. Nathan had respected her boundaries, contacting her only about practical matters. Bills, their shared assets, the condo they'd finally decided to sell. She knew he was still seeing his therapist. Still hoping for reconciliation, according to Mia, who occasionally met him for coffee out of a loyalty that transcended the unraveling of Elena's marriage. With a deep breath, Elena opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Not a letter, as she'd expected, but legal documents. Divorce papers, already signed by Nathan, her breath caught. Despite everything, despite knowing this was likely coming, the finality of it hit her hard. But there was something else in the envelope. A small handwritten note. Elena, these are yours to sign or tear up. Your choice, your timeline. I promised to wait, and I meant it. But I also promised to start being honest, and the truth is that you deserve complete freedom to decide what comes next. Whatever you choose, I want you to know that loving you was the best thing I ever did, and hurting you was the worst. I'm working to become someone worthy of a second chance. But I'll understand if that chance never comes. All my love. Nathan Elena folded the note carefully and returned it to the envelope along with the unsigned divorce papers. She felt a strange lightness, not from happiness but from the weight of decision being placed fully in her hands. No pressure, no manipulation, just choice. Elena, we're ready for your speech, her assistant called from across the room. She nodded, tucking the envelope into her clutch. That was a decision for another day. Tonight was about this moment, this accomplishment, this new chapter she was writing for herself. As she moved toward the small podium, she caught sight of Daniel the curator now speaking with Mia. He glanced in her direction and smiled warmly. She returned the smile, not with romantic intent, but with openness to possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider in months. The gallery fell quiet as Elena took her place at the microphone. She surveyed the room filled with artists, patrons, and friends who had supported her through the Foundation's growth and her own personal upheaval. Thank you all for coming tonight, she began, her voice clear and confident. We're here to celebrate new voices and fresh perspectives in art. Work that challenges us to see the world differently. She paused, drawing a breath. Sometimes the most powerful creations emerge from disruption, when what we thought we knew is suddenly called into question. When familiar patterns break, and we're forced to reimagine. From the back of the room, she noticed a late arrival. Nathan standing quietly by the door. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded space. He gave her a small nod of acknowledgement but made no move to approach. Elena continued her speech, talking about the featured artists and their work, but her thoughts drifted to the envelope in her clutch. To choices and consequences. To endings that might someday become new beginnings. Later, as the crowd began to thin, she found herself standing before a striking painting, an abstract exploration of fracture and rebuilding, all in shades of blue and gold. "It's about resilience," said a voice beside her. Daniel, the curator, his expression appreciative as he studied the canvas. "The artist calls it after the breaking," Elena nodded. "It's beautiful." "Some things are more beautiful for having been broken," he offered. "There's a Japanese art form, kintsugi, where they repair broken pottery with gold. The damage becomes part of the history of the object, not something to hide." "I've heard of it." Elena smiled. "Honoring the breaks instead of disguising them." "Exactly." He held out his hand. "I'm Daniel, by the way. I curate at the West Side Contemporary." "Elena, I know who you are. Mia's told me about your work." Their conversation flowed easily, about art and restoration and the nature of beauty. Nothing personal, nothing presumptuous. Just two people connecting over shared interests. Across the room, Nathan watched for a moment before quietly slipping out the door. Elena saw him go but didn't follow. Whatever decision she made about those papers would come from strength, not impulse. From knowing herself, not needing him. The flowers she'd sent to that table months ago had been an act of anger and revelation. But tonight, standing amid beauty created from disruption, Elena recognized that they had also been the first step toward reclaiming herself. Whether her marriage ended or transformed, whether new relationships blossomed or she built a life entirely her own, one truth remained. She had survived the breaking, and whatever came next would be her choice. Her creation. Imperfect, perhaps, but authentic. And in that authenticity lay a kind of beauty that no betrayal could tarnish.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.